Africa is ditching the US dollar, allowing it to determine its own future. But why is this so significant? Well, part of the reason is because the US dollar is still the most powerful currency in the world. Globally, roughly half of all the money that's kept in banks is in the US dollar. And this allows the United States to engage in significant financial leverage, which I would frankly call financial warfare or financial colonialism. And one of the ways the United States engaged in this leverage was by pressuring global institutions that were supposedly neutral. One of these systems was a system called SWIFT. And what SWIFT did is it provided the infrastructure that allowed for different banks to send money across borders to each other. And for a long time, SWIFT was the global and universal standard allowing for this. But the United States used its financial power to pressure SWIFT to cancel its services in countries like Russia, Iran, and Belarus. This was a form of economic warfare against these countries, and their economies very quickly started to be affected. Well, since this happened, a lot of the world has now seen SWIFT no longer as a neutral system, but as a tool of the United States in terms of its imperialism and economic warfare. And now a lot of the world is trying to find new alternatives. One of these is the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, which I will call PAPS. What PAPS does, it allows for the more direct transfer of money across African countries. So what was it like before PAPS though? Well, two things. One was that money would have to be transferred when it went from one country to another. It would have to go through many financial institutions. This took time and cost a lot of money. But the second thing that was also involved, and that's critical for this video, is that there would usually be a currency that acted as an intermediary. And what that means is that rather than your one African currency getting directly converted into another African currency, usually this is what would happen. The money you sent would first be converted into US dollars, and then the US dollar would be converted into the currency for the destination you were sending the money. And what this meant is that African banks had to keep on to US dollars. But now that the system of PAPS works, where you just have your money directly converted, the US dollar is no longer necessary. Now, to be clear, most African banks are still keeping on to significant amounts of US dollar. But what the system of PAPS means is that if the United States was to ever sanction any of these African countries, they now have the infrastructure that would allow them to avoid a lot of the effects of these sanctions. It would be able to avoid using the US dollar and avoid using the system of SWIFT that has become a tool of the United States. This is Africa becoming independent, this is Africa resisting the United States imperialism, and this is Africa's future. Go Africa!